Welcome to Hockey Talk. Today we welcome the voice of the Kirkland Lake gold miners, Jeff Mackie, to discuss the NOJHL, the World Juniors, and Jeff even plays Hockey Santa. All that and more on Hockey Talk, brought to you by Phil Marks of Timmins Garage, your local GM dealer, and by Kamoskosia Snow Resort, home to the province's longest ski season. Welcome, everyone, to the next edition of Hockey Talks. Our guest today is Jeff Mackie, the voice of the NOJHL's Kirkland Lake Gold Miners, who can be heard at www.fasthockey.com. That's www.fasthockey.com. How are you doing today, Jeff?
Very well, Frank. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for joining us for the Christmas edition of Hockey Talk. Speaking of Christmas break, or Christmas, the NOJHL, are heading shortly on a Christmas break. There's one game left as we record this to be played this evening between Mattawa and Powassan. Could you provide perhaps a quick overview, Jeff, of the season to date, and then perhaps we can look forward to the second half of the season and what awaits the league and some of the teams moving towards the playoffs in the NOJHL?
Well, I think what stands out so far, Frank, is just how many good teams there are in the NOJHL this year. You know, it's a 9-team league this year, and the East Division has 5 teams, the West Division 4 teams. And really the only 2 teams in the league right now that are struggling are Mattawa, who have 5 wins on the year, and then Blind River, who haven't won at all yet this year. And when you have a situation like that, you see a lot of teams then with really solid records. And so you've got 7 clubs, including Powassan, that has come on as of late, that are playing some pretty good hockey right now. And, you know, it's always an up and down sort of thing where teams have good weeks and bad weeks. But what I see right now is it's going to be an incredible second half. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, you've got Kirkland Lake now leading the Cochrane Crunch by 9 points, which is a fair margin. But Cochrane's a team that's getting better, making some key additions in the last couple of weeks, and they went out west and won in Elliott Lake in Sault Ste. Marie. That was a statement weekend for them. And I think they're going to challenge KL in the second half, just not necessarily take over first place, but they're going to play KL a few more times, and they're going to have an opportunity to beat them. And then going into the playoffs, I think those 2 teams may, at some point in time, meet for the right to go to the league final, and that'll be a heck of a series if they do meet. And out west, I think it's pretty wide open right now. I know the Sioux, just because of their experience and that they always seem to be the favorite to come out of that division. But Elliott Lake has played them very tough this year, and I think Elliott Lake is one of those teams that kind of almost an underdog type team that you don't pay a lot of attention to them until you play them, and they play really well against you. So I think they'll be a team that can give the Sioux a lot of trouble if they do meet in the playoffs. And then Sudbury is playing pretty good too, the 3rd team in that division. And so the other thing too is just it's going to be unbelievable in the first round. You're going to see a couple of good hockey teams get knocked off in that first round, and just a very competitive league this year.
Now, is there a couple of players, Jeff, that have struck you, in the first half of the season, maybe players that have improved greatly over last year, or maybe some newcomers who you think might have a chance someday of, playing at the next level?
Well, there's a lot of guys that are having incredible years. And one player in Powassan, I think, that's really lighting up the league right now is a guy named Steve Harland, who has been scoring at a couple of points a game for the last couple of months, really. And he's a draft pick of the North Bay Battalion, and North Bay likes him a lot, and he could end up playing himself into the lineup at some point, maybe a few games this year, or maybe as a 19-year-old next year, because he is an 18-year-old kid, but he's a bit of a late bloomer and has all kinds of offensive skills and creativity. He's a player that's really stood out for the Powassan Voodoos for sure. A couple of other guys that are having incredible years would be that come to mind would be Cody Gratton, of course, in Cochrane, who's just an unbelievable offensive player, and he's kind of threatening to run away with the scoring race. Although Brady Kluche of Abitibi had a 9-point game a week or 2 ago that kind of got him back into it. But a guy like Cody Gratton, Steve Harland, really solid offensive players, are guys that are worth the price of admission alone. They really, really are. And Kirkland Lake's got a number of guys as well. Stephen Babin is once again right up there in the scoring leaders. And Ryan Oberton is another player that is getting almost 2 points a game for KL. He's a Hearst native, and if he had to play the whole year, he'd be right up there too.
So, Jeff, apart from the arrival of Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, the Christmas break means one main thing for Canadians, and that's the start of the World Junior Hockey Championships. The Hockey Canada Brain Trust named the Canadian team a little less than a week ago with some key additions from the NHL, including Curtis Lazar of the Ottawa Senators and Anthony Duclair of the New York Rangers. Can you share with us what you think of the team, and more specifically, are there any players that you feel should have been on the team that were left off by Hockey Canada?
I wasn't particularly surprised with any of the selections. I think maybe one of the surprises that kind of did stand out for me was that the defenseman Joe Hicketts from the Western Hockey League, he made the team, and he's more of a smaller type guy, but very offensively skilled. He's among the league leaders in points among defensemen in the Western Hockey League, but he's kind of he has, I think, a little bit less experience through the Hockey Canada program than, say, a player like Chris Bigris from the Owen Sound Attack in the Ontario Hockey League. So that one was a bit of a surprise on the back end. But in terms of the forwards, it's so hard at this time of year, at this level, to differentiate between who's more talented than the next kid. But I think it becomes more of a case of, like, who fits better on this particular team. I mean, a player like Jason Dickinson was cut, a Guelph Storm player, a first-round draft pick by the Dallas Stars, who's just a great Ontario Hockey League player. And maybe in another year he would have made the team, perhaps if a guy like Anthony Duclair didn't get sent back, or Curtis Lazar. Like, if Canada wasn't getting NHL players, guys like that would make the team.
So outside of our Canadian team, are there some players from some of the other teams that you're excited to see play in the upcoming tournament?
Well, the one player that I can't wait to see is Jack Eichel from the United States. And the U.S. are going to have another strong team this year, and there's talk of him and Connor McDavid being the 1 and 1A draft picks come next summer's draft. And Eichel, I mean, it's like comparing apples and oranges, because McDavid plays against younger players in the OHL, whereas Jack Eichel has just been a dominant player in the NCAA against players that are a few years older than he is, sometimes, 22 or 23 even, like 5 or 6 years older than him. And so it's tough to really judge the two. But now we have them on the world stage, right, on an even playing surface, so to speak. And it'll be fun to watch Jack Eichel go head-to-head against Connor McDavid, and we know that they'll play each other on New Year's Eve. So that'll be the first time that those kids get a chance this year anyway to go up against each other, and it should be a really, really exciting game to watch.
So let's take out our World Junior crystal ball, if you will, Jeff. Do you think Canada is makes it to the finals, and do you think they break that streak of 5 years without winning the World Junior Championships?
Well, that's a loaded question, because every year it seems they should be able to win the tournament, and because they're on home ice this year, and because the tournament is stacked so in favor of Canada, that it really should be called the World Junior Canada Championship, just kind of like the Canada Cup of years ago. But, I kind of think that it's about time that they did win gold. And I know that doesn't mean a hill of beans when it comes down to who's going to win the gold medal, but I think that the Russians this year and the Swedes may be taking a bit of a step backwards, that it's kind of teams go through rebuilding years. So I don't know if the Russians and Swedes are going to be quite as strong as they have been in the past. And the Americans are going to be another strong team. I think they'll be right there. And the Finns, who won gold last year, are going to be right there as well again this year. And the Americans and the Finns are always difficult teams for Canada to play against. But I'm going to go with Canada winning gold this year. I think the stars are kind of aligning.
I tend to agree with you, Jeff. My only concern is, and I've had this concern for a long time. It's been many years since Canada's had a goalie steal a game or steal a tournament for them, which used to happen more often than not. It seemed back in the 90s and the early 2000s. My concern is that we're going to see a goalie from another team stand on his head again and steal a 2-1 game from Canada. So I'm hoping Canada wins. I'm projecting that they'll win, but I always remain worried of one game, hottest goalie wins type situation, which is always a concern at this level, and when there's one game knockout. Jeff, with this being our Christmas episode, I thought it would be fun to let you play Hockey Santa and let our viewers know what you would offer, what you would bring to different individuals, different teams, different associations for Christmas if you had the chance to do it. So what should Santa bring to the Timmins Majors?
Well, I think that they should bring maybe some venom to deal with the fact that they've been so snake bitten this year in terms of their goal scoring, and they're a team that is last in the Great North Midget League in goal scoring. But they do have the ability to create some offense, and I think in a lot of those games, a lot of 1-2 goal losses that they've had, it's just been almost a matter of doing everything except finishing off the plays. So how about some venom to deal with the fact that they're a snake-bitten team?
What should Hockey Santa bring to Paul Gagne, coach of the Abitibi Eskimos of the NOJHL?
Well, for the Abitibi Eskimos, you know what I would do? I'd bring a roller coaster to the parking lot at the Just Jordan Arena so the fans can ride that before and after the games to kind of get a sense of what it's like to be a fan of this team, because they have been on such a roller coaster ride for the entire year so far. Bad start, started playing well, looked like they were going to contend for that division title, and then in 4 losses, or a 3 or 4 losses now, I guess, to end the calendar year, they're going to have to ride the roller coaster for the rest of the year in Iroquois Falls.
And for Mark LaFleur, coach of the Kirkland Lake Gold Miners, what would you want Santa to bring him for Christmas?
Well, I think that they need to find a way to recreate the environment of the Joe Mavernack Community Complex here in KL and every other building, because they are a completely different team when they play on the road. And as the season goes on this year, that's going to be something that they really, really have to address, is that they have to become a better team on the road. They're dominant here at home. They've 17 wins and 1 overtime loss so far this year, but they have to find a way to win more consistently on the road, and that's going to be an issue during the playoffs as well. If they can't get a home ice advantage, especially in a series, they're going to have to become a better road team.
So what should Hockey Santa bring to Aaron Kerr, a local hockey product who is now plying his trade in the QMJHL, playing for the Acadie Bathurst Titans?
Well, I think one thing that Aaron could benefit from would maybe be some just some more experienced, better teammates to play with. And just because the Acadie Bathurst is the 18th out of 18 teams in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League right now, and Aaron is doing a fantastic job as part of the offense for that team. He's doubled his goal total from last year in just about half the games that he's played, so he's really stepped forward this year. But they're a team that's kind of struggling right now and sort of still finding their way. And so I think Aaron is so talented that if he were to be in a situation where he had more skilled line mates, guys with more experience, he might be a lot better offensively in the Quebec League.
So, Jeff, if you were a Hockey Santa, what would you give Connor McDavid, who after missing 40 days due to a broken hand suffered in a fight in the Ontario Hockey League, is now playing his trade again as the second-line center for the Canadian team at the World Junior Championships, which begin officially on the 26th of December?
I just think that he could definitely use an Erie, probably somebody on his line that is able to do the fighting for him, right, Frank?
Jeff, I thought for a second there that you were going to suggest that the Erie Otters should go scouring Western Canada for Dave Semenko Jr. for a second there.
I'm going to use the word Dave Semenko, but I thought that might go over the head of some of your younger listeners.
I just thought I'd go old school. For those of you
who have any younger listeners.
Yeah, so for those younger viewers who have no idea who Dave Semenko is, please go have a look on Google and you'll find out exactly who he was. And I'll give you a hint. He was basically the policeman who played on Wayne Gretzky's wing for a number of years, along with Yari Curry, and had cement hands and yet managed to score 23 goals one year, I believe. That's how good Wayne Gretzky was. So thanks, Jeff, once again for being part of Hockey Talk. This is our last one for 2014. I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I look forward to having further conversations on local, regional, and international hockey moving forward in 2015.
And Merry Christmas to you, Frank, and Merry Christmas to all the listeners as well.
And that does it for this edition of Hockey Talk. I'd like to thank our guest, Jeff Mackie, who is the voice of the Kirkland Lake Gold Miners of the NOJHL. And you can hear Jeff do all of the home games for the Gold Miners at www.fasthockey.com. That's www.fasthockey.com. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for this edition of Hockey Talk, Phil Martz of Timmins Garage and Kamoskosia Snow Resort.